Welcome to the next video. Just a quick video, still not sure what I'm going to call it, to think about a name. A little bit of an impromptu one. Uh, I'm busy entering all my data and something happened and I fixed it in a certain way and I'd like to share that with you simply because and it's nothing earth-shattering, please. But you know, if I look at the first time when I entered the data on a system that I was actually subscribed to somebody else's server and I was using it. That's before I created my own system and configured it and all that. Uh, you know, when I look back at how I entered things, it really could have been done a lot better. And I think it's because there's really not too many videos out there that covers practical examples of situations you may face. Because I mean, to enter an item on an invoice is very simple. But the trick comes in when you've got to add VAT and there's freight and forwarding charges, and there's courier fee, yeah, and you know, especially if you import, you've got an invoice that you pay, and then 10 days later you get an invoice from the courier company where you've got to pay duties and VATs, but it's related to this invoice. All right, so all these little small things, you know, that you've got to figure out yourself. So maybe if I decided to make a video here and there to, if I see these little idiosyncrasies, if that's the right word, these funny little things, and in the process you also get to know ERPNext a little bit better. All right, so here's my live system. I'm actually covering up some of the company detail because I'm not here to uh, point fingers at the company. I'm sure it's just a little bit of a slip on their software that caused this little error. What happened is that's the subtotal. There's items just further up, which I'm not going to show to you now. 26 items, and that's the subtotal. All right, now you need to calculate VAT. Now you can calculate the VAT, yeah? Let's see. 3667.08 times 0.15. That's 550 Rand and 6 cents. All right. Their software rounded it up to 0.007 cents. All right. It should have been rounded down. Now the problem comes in. If I enter it on ERPNext and you do it as normal, how do you do it as normal? Let me show you on my practice system. Typically, you would have, I've just created some invoice with one item. The values doesn't match up. That's not the point. The point is the procedure. You've got your subtotal. How do you calculate VAT? You can use your template, all right, which should be pre-configured. It's already pre-configured, but I don't know. I just like doing it this way. So you say on net total, which means I'm going to calculate VAT on that net total. You choose your account that you're going to use. And if I can just pause a moment, have a look here. Yeah, there's two accounts. This is the pre-setup account in ERPNext. It's under liabilities. I'm not VAT registered, so it's pointless for me to use that account because VAT typically is in and out. You get it in and you pay it out again. All right. That's why it's not in your profit and loss statement because it's not really expense. For me, it's an expense. Okay, so I've created under direct expenses a sub-account called stock expenses, and then a child account under that VAT, not VAT registered, 5113. It's under direct expenses. So I've created that because this lands up in your profit and loss statement. So I can accurately check that I've got all my costs tied up. All right, so now I say 15%, and you can go and calculate this. That is 15% of that, tallies up very, very nicely. But I used on net total, and you'll notice on my real system I used actual. How does that work? And this is the nice thing, and I think this is what I want to bring forward is that you need to be aware of all your options when you start clicking on these columns. You know, for instance, if you just click that, um, it'll automatically put on net total depending on how you've configured it. And you'll never be aware of all these things that you can use. Now, let's say this was also 1 cent out. Okay? Now I know it isn't, but let's just play. Let's just delete this. And I want to now calculate the VAT, and now I find that it's 1 cent out. You don't have to say on net total, you can also just say actual. You can still choose your VAT account, but instead of stipulating the rate, you can now stipulate the amount. Now you're free to enter whatever you want. 79.78, for instance. And you'll see there, it's now not 611.60, it's 611.61, which is what I wanted to achieve here. You know, I needed to raise that by a cent, because my bank transaction is 4217.15, not 14. All right. So I think the takeaway to this is, you know, have a look at your columns. Play around with some of these entry columns. Check at the drop down. For instance, this on previous row total. I think I've already made a video about how to use that row total. It's a very interesting option there, where you, for instance, have items and then adding freight and then VAT, but then they charge VAT on the freight as well, which of course I don't know if it's correct, but all right, let's leave that for somebody else to figure out. But now you don't want VAT to be calculated on that, but on the previous row total, like for instance here, if that was freight and forwarding, you know, then you can use that option to calculate the VAT. There's another video that I made about it. Have a look at that. So I just want you to be aware of things that you can select. Another lesson which I've learned is always use this edit. Go through these fields. Make sure your descriptions are what you want them to be. Make sure your cost centers are there. There's no stores and entries here. That'll be on the items. But click that drop down and make sure your fields are set up correctly. I think that's one of the places where I slipped up the most. Right. Hope it somehow has raised an awareness with you.